Yeah, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back. I missed you guys last week, so here we are again for part 9. We're going to start the weathering process on the M61A5 main battle tank from Gundam. It's a Bandai kit, 1/35th scale, and handwritten. Mr. Hasaki Art is the first one in. He beat everybody in tonight. Yo, what's up, Mike? How you doing, handwritten? Good to see you as always. I'm going to be using various products from AK and AIM products, the pigments, stuff like that. I've got all this stuff spread out on the bench here. Let me just go down to the down look here so we can see. So yeah, I got a few things right on next to the laptop there, some various parts. But what's this up here? What's up? Oh, Giovanni's in. How you doing, Giovanni? Really glad to be here. Yeah, good to see you too, as always, Andrew. How you doing, Michael Francis Garcia? What's up, dude? Michael Francis Garcia. I feel like I should know who this is. Sorry if I'm totally having a brain fade right at the moment, but I was off last week. I was down in Portland for training, and that all went well. And so we're going to go down to the close-up here. But now we're back, and the turret is essentially assembled, except for the couple little machine guns that have to go on the front here and the back. But what you may not have noticed is hiding here is our little mascot, the 1/44 scale main battle tank there. Blends right in. Same color scheme. One of the last things I did this week was I finished all the decals last week, pretty much. I had a couple more to do on the side skirts, like right here. The biggest challenge was lining up these that go over the top of these steps. Hey, what's up, Nick? Friends on Facebook. Well, good. I'm glad. I know we're friends, but I wasn't sure if it was like somebody closer to me. Like, do I work with you? And it's a alias I'm not familiar with, Michael. Sorry about that. Anyway, so yeah, I had to do these. I had to cut this little piece of decal off and fit it around where these steps are folded up here. So the front ones were a little bit more difficult as far as applying those decals. But I did finish all the decals on the turret, sealed everything, gloss coat, followed by another flat coat. So everything is sealed, and we're going to start doing the weathering process tonight, which is starting with hand-painted chipping. And yes, I am using Mr. Color Lacquers for chipping. This is number 29. It is Hull Red. It's a nice reddish brown color, similar to what I would feel like would be like a primer. If you're going to chip your paint, there's going to be some primer underneath. You're going to see that dark brown or darkish red color. But before I get into that, one other thing, I still have the antennas. This will be something that will attach last. And I'm going to try to grab this one without messing it up. I used a piece of stretched sprue for this. So I've got a very, very thin piece. That one is going to go in the larger receptacle here. It's not going to sit there right now because I'm going to have to do a little bit of sanding to reduce the size of the base of it, but it will glue right in there. And then, of course, then I can bend it and shape that. The other antenna will go here. There's a small little base that attaches to the turret, and then I'll be using some of this 28 gauge magnet wire. I don't know if you can even see that, but it's a thinner. It's the thickest magnet wire that I have, but it's thin enough that or strong enough it'll create a nice looking antenna for that. So we'll have 2 antennae on this as well. Anybody else join in? Nope. So far, we just got about 3 or 4 in here. So let me get started disassembling this so we can start doing the chipping. I did start a little bit of chipping underneath here, and I'll show that in just a second. I've got the hatch glued in place, the bracket for the light machine gun here, and then the 50 cal is also in place. But those I'll have to do some hand painting on those guns and install those toward the end, because I don't want them they're probably too fragile to be handling everything while we're still trying to fix all this. So I'm just going to rotate this so this will come off. And you can see the number insignias, everything sealed in with. Once I clear coated, I put a clear gloss over the decals and then flat coated them again. So there's virtually no border where the carrier film is. You can't see it. This looks like they're painted on, which is exactly what you want in a nice water slide decal. So then we got these two that went around the vents. There's a couple little smaller markings on top, but not a whole lot, But the main thing is you can see that pattern where all of those non-slip panels were that texture that was, what I will add, was also included in the kit. I did not make up those panels. Somebody asked me after a post that I made with some photos that how did I create that pattern? I said, I didn't create the pattern. It was actually molded into the kit, but I wanted to kind of highlight those and make them look a little bit different color, so it draws your attention to those panels and kind of gives it some unique look to it. You know, where crew members and the tank crew and everything be walking across the top thread, they don't want to slip and fall, so they have these non-slip panels. It's similar to what you'd see on aircraft. They have that too, so when crew are walking around in certain areas of the aircraft, they don't slip, or they're getting in and out of the cockpit. So I'm just going to set the turret aside for now and explain something that happened by accident. I actually made a mistake, and I want to go over how I fixed it. So let me flip this around so I can turn this on edge. So what I didn't realize is that I glued not just this top fender. This wouldn't have been a big deal, but the top half that goes on top of the main body of the tank. Let's see. Giovanni says, I finally bought a compressor. Went to Harbor Freight, Black Widow airbrush compressor. Nice. How's that working out? Is it quiet? I'm curious because I'm pretty much an Iwata. I use the Iwata products mostly from all my airbrushes and my compressor, so I'm curious to see how other compressors work. When I bought my first one, it was a California Air. It had a nice 1.6 gallon storage tank. It was kind of nice, but man, was it loud. I did all my airbrushing in the garage just because it was just too loud. So anyway, getting back here, I glued the top half, the shell basically on the tank, not realizing that you're basically supposed to put the tracks on first before you bring that top piece on, because let me just grab this. I think, yeah, it's this one here. Because there is a piece that actually that was right here. And if you glue the top down before you put the gear on here, on this front peg, you can't get that gear on. And I'll show you what I'm talking about. Let me just grab it real quick. So the front drive gear, in order to get this on, you can't have that piece here. So I had to measure, I had to actually draw a line to see where these fenders, what part of that is covered up, because I knew I wasn't going to be seeing all of it. So I put this piece on, drew myself a little outline, and then cut that piece off, which again, this is what it looked like. Let me just grab it with the tweezers and make it a little easier. Really quiet, and it maintains air pressure. Very good, very good. Does it shut off on its own when you stop using your airbrush? I'm curious about that too. So you see where this piece would have been. There's no room to get that drive gear onto the peg. So I lucked out. There was a way to fix it. For a second, I thought, man, I'm really screwed, because I glued all this down. There was really no way I would ever be able to separate the top again without really making a mess of things. So by removing that piece, now I can get the track on there and install this wheel, because I may have to do it backwards. You're basically supposed to install all the drive wheels and or the wheels that are just basically rollers, and then you got the two drive gear. You got the main drive gear in the back and the drive gear in the front. So you're basically supposed to put the track on, and then this one goes on last. You put the in the actual track, and then you stretch it on and pop it in place. I may just have to reverse that process, put it on here first, and put everything on the rear drive gear last, because this fender is already cut away. There's nothing interfering with installing that. It was just the front one, so I had to do that to both sides. It was a little bit of a headache there for a second, because I thought, man, how am I going to fix this? Just got ahead of myself, and I started gluing parts together, not realizing that there's a reason why they had you put the tracks on first. And the reason I didn't is because I wanted to be able to dirty this up and put dust and dirt and pigment and stuff in there and weather this before I put the tracks on, because I wanted to be able, if you look through that stuff, I want to see that dirt and grime behind it. And so that's why I did it that way, not realizing that I almost screwed myself. So cool. Giovanni says, yeah, it does shut off by itself. That's nice. I'm glad I hope you're happy with it. It sounds like you are. Now we'll get to the chipping part. So I've got a little tiny brush here. This is a newer one. I had one I'm starting to use, and it's a 3-aught. I'm not sure what that means in the way it brushes. It's just, I bought a 3-pack or 4-pack of these, very, very thin. Nice tip on them. Not super small, but enough where you can do some small hand painting detail work. And I started adding some chipping here. So you can see this side nice and clean. And then you get over here, and now you're starting to see some of the chips. Now, I'm going to keep adding more of this. Right now, I've just kind of started to kind of think about where the wear and tear would be on some of these sections in front. This is obviously the front of the tank. There's a lot of, if you're rolling over debris, there's going to be quite a bit of chipping on the front area of this. So as I continue to add more and more, depending on how saturated I want those to be, I'll just keep adding more of that brown. And you see that is the number 29 Hall Red from Mr. Color. So it does give a nice, looks like a primer effect where the paint would be chipped off. Now, some of the deeper ones where you might actually have exposed metal beyond the primer, I will go ahead and use an enamel silver, and it'll be just very small specks that you might see some of that through. And I'm not too worried about the brightness of that. I just want, if you want to see that metal underneath, because then I'm going to go over it with pastels, pigment, other things, so it will dull down those bare metal scratches and dings. You made it, Julius. Julius is in the house. How you doing, guys? Glad to have everybody back. Sorry I missed you last week, but I thought about doing it Thursday. There was just no way. It was a long drive home on Wednesday night, and I was just tore up. It took over 4 hours to get back from Portland. I had to work the next day, and there was just no way. So no big deals. But anyway, what I do want to do is I will be putting on, just temporarily installing these fenders that go on, or the side skirts, I should say, just so I can start matching some of this chipping to the front of this. Because, again, this is going to be very close to the tracks, very close to the bottom of the tank, so there will be a lot of, at least in the front portion, there will be quite a few bit chipping going on. And then less and less, of course, as you get higher up on the side of the tank. But I will be doing some on top, some in these areas where crew would be walking around on these non-slip panels. So there will be some chipping, but not nearly as much as it's going to be down here in the front, and maybe where the rocks and things are being thrown up with the tracks and everything. So it will be quite a bit of chipping there. So Giovanni says, it started painting. I'll put this on screen here. Started painting an HG Cathedral using all-clad titanium gold. Very nice. All-clad pale gold. About to spray aqua gloss on those parts. Yeah, definitely use aqua gloss when using all-clad metallics. If you use a regular lacquer gloss, it will blow away. It'll just basically eat your nice shiny metal finish, and you'll have your black base underneath coming through. You'll definitely lose all of that. Oh gosh, I'm going to butcher this name. In my opinion, Gundam tank origin, normal tank. I'm going to butcher this. I am so sorry. Uya Zaza. Uy Zaza. Good. Very nice to meet you. How you doing? Welcome in. This is the Bandai 135th scale main battle tank M61A5 from Bandai, and we're just starting the weathering process, and we're going to put some chipping down. So I guess I'll start with this. I'm going to continue doing the chipping here. I'll try to keep this in camera. If I see that I'm starting to get a little too far this way, I'll just bump the camera up. So it'll be, because this is a very big piece to hold on to, and sometimes it's hard to get it on camera enough where I'm not hitting the actual bench. I tend to pull it in closer to me and go off the edge of the table. So I'm going to try not to do that. But anyway, in my opinion, gun tank origin. Gotcha. So you like the gun tank better than the main battle tank? Well, that's of course, because it's kind of half Gundam, half tank. To be honest, if I'm thinking about that right. I'm not an expert, so all right. I'm just going to put this pad up for. This is a little piece of foam that I use for doing pigment stuff, but it's also nice to set something on and not have to worry about scratching it or digging it around on my bench. So I'm just going to mix up my paint and start going to work here. Let's take that off. I don't think anybody else snuck in. Just checking the list here real quick. Sorry, guys. Yep, all good, all good. All right. One more time, this is Mr. Color number 29, whole red. And this particular jar, I mean, this is the one that's open. I only usually open one jar at a time, but I have thinned this down quite a bit, so it is decent for hand painting, even though, again, it is a lacquer. But I have discovered through practice that if you thin them properly, you can hand paint with this stuff as long as you're moving fairly efficiently. You can't stand around and waste too much time, but it's not going to, because they do dry so fast. Actually, one more thing before I go, because we've got a couple new people in here. I'm going to go ahead and show everybody again the fiber optics. Now that everything's installed, I hand painted a clear red over those little center lights up there in the front. So I got this little battery holder for. So now the lenses are installed, and there you go. We've got lights. And that's just 4 strands of 2mm fiber optic that I bloomed the front ends so they're rounded like a bulb. And then there's one central LED camped somewhere around this area in the front. And all those strands kind of come in through the sides and gather in that one LED. So it's a single white LED. I just got the battery holder there, so I can access it and change out the battery whenever I need to. And if I'm going to show it or whatever, I just pull the turret off, then I've got access to the battery holder. I can do that. So, all right. Now we're going to start painting. Thanks, Handren. Ooh, live it. Like it, live it. You like it live. Pretty sure you meant to say like, right? Yeah, nothing too spectacular. I mean, I was thinking about trying to put these taillights in. There's a small little, I think it's a taillight on the side here, but there was really no way for me to run a fiber optic up to it. I know you. Gotcha, Handren. So what I'll do is I will put a filament in there, but I'll clear coat it with a red clear in the back, and that will light up the front of it to look like a taillight. That's really the only way I could do those. I didn't want to try to figure out I couldn't figure out how to put power to it, or at least put a fiber optic in there that I could also light up. So looking again at this drive gear, so the tracks, this is going to basically, I'm not going to press this all the way, but So the track system is going to be fairly close to this edge. So there will be quite a bit of chipping going on from rocks and things that are going to fly off the tracks, including, the fenders here. So I got to work on those. But I'm going to start kind of adding more and more here and saturating this area a little bit heavier that would be exposed to that continuous barrage of, natural debris and stuff. But I guess I can leave this here for a reference, but I'm just going to take the wheel off and set it aside for now. All right. G1, how you doing, G1? Young guy, Mikey. It's been a minute, man. I haven't seen you in a while. Good to have you back. Thanks for coming in. So I think, G1, you're from Australia, if I remember. I know I ask probably every time you pop in. Go check his page out. He's got some really cool stuff. G1 Mech. If you're on IG or YouTube, I think you can find him on both. Correct me if I'm wrong. But so what I'm doing here, young guy, that's funny. I just did two engine teardown, two big turbo engine teardowns in a row, back to back. So my back is tore up. I don't feel very young. It's been a rough week. Mostly the time when I do this, I just start on the edges, because the edges are really where paint's going to chip first. And then I'll start adding some detail to the flat surfaces around it, because you're going to get obviously some transfer to those areas as well. But this is just the first stage of the weathering. It's kind of tedious. It can take some time to do this because it's all done by hand. You could use a sponge, but I like having more control. I think I got more control with a small brush like this. I can control the amount. Like a sponge can sometimes get a little oversaturated, so I'm kind of trying to keep that close to my or don't get too wild and crazy with it. Man, I gotta tell you, yes, scribing pain lines there. Something about it. What? Scribing pain? Oh, panel lines. Okay, I know what you're trying to tell me. Are you driving right now? Where are you at now, Andrew? Maybe we should ask you that. Are you on the road somewhere again, or are you parked? You're camped out for the night? Scribing panel lines. Yeah, there is that. I did a little. I just had. That's how I cut this piece off, because I had to see what was going to be exposed when I cut that little fender piece off. But I did use my 0.2 millimeter BMC chisel to describe that and cut that piece off. And some of this, again, is not going to be seen once you put that drive wheel all the way on and the track is there. You're not going to see a lot of this. I don't need to get too crazy and deep, because it's just going to be covered up. No one's going to see it anyway. Parked in Columbus, Ohio. Wow, very cool. I used to have, I'm pretty sure I probably still do, but when I was very, very young, I was just a baby. My parents took me to Ohio. I don't remember what state or what city. We did have relatives out there. It was some great grandparents or something in Ohio. But yeah, I don't really remember. I think after my mother passed away, I collected some very old photo albums, and I'm sure some of them are in there. But I don't even. I just have shadowy images in my memory from then, because I was so very young. It was just ridiculous. Parked. See, pen lines. Damn tablet. You sure it's not your fat fingers there, buddy? You're blaming it on your tablet. It's auto-correcting on you, huh? I said, you sure it's not, you're not fat friggin'? I know. I know what it is. I feel you. I do the same thing at work. They give you these tiny little laptops with really tiny keyboards, and then you're supposed to, like, big old giant paws like mine, and I'm supposed to try to type on a keyboard. I will do a little bit of chipping here because, you will be able to see some through the treads, but I don't think anybody's really going to be looking that deeply into the track, so I'm not going to spend a ton of time in here. I will, however, do quite a bit of dirt and dust in here. And I see every once in a while I see a thread from when I did my panel lining. So I got to get in there because those always show up after you start clear coating. You do your first flat coat. Anytime you got a piece of lint or something on there, it starts showing up. You got to grab those and pull them off. And I'm not going to do too much on the underside. I mean, I will a little bit, but again, unless somebody's actually going to physically pick this up and look underneath it, they're not going to see it. Maybe that too. Yeah, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Big old bear paws. These front toe brackets, they actually come off. I haven't glued them in place yet, so if I need to, I can remove them so I can get in closer to some of these little deeper areas. So G1, you still here? How you doing, man? What are you working on today? Probably a car, if I'm not mistaken. I imagine it's some kind of car. And I'm just kind of randomly applying this. I will sometimes take a thin brush like this and do a quick stroke to create like the effect of like a scratch, because obviously the tank's not standing still taking damage. It's moving all the time, and anytime you go over a rock or something, there's going to be some scratches that go past the edges, from an edge back, like a high point where the chipping would start on some of these surface variations. And this takes some time. It will take time to get this done, but you can always go back and add more. My Ultraman. Oh, nice. Something totally different. I didn't expect that, because you pretty much are a car guy, if I remember. Unless I'm totally spacing and thinking of somebody else, but. Looks pretty good. I'm going to get a little heavier up here on the front. We'll have to go in every so often. I have to clean the brush out. Because these are lacquers, it will start to dry and get a little, the tip of the brush will start getting a little heavy. So sometimes it's necessary to go in and just clean the brush, start fresh again. I mean, I could use enamels. I just don't have the color palette in my stock here. I've got mostly Mr. Color stuff. So if I found an enamel paint of the same color, then it would be easier. And then if you do make a mistake, you just take it off with some enamel thinner real quick, like some AK odorless. This stuff here, my favorite. You can do that, but I don't have any. I only have a few enamels, and it's mostly for doing highlights and reverse washes. Black, silver, red, blue. I got the light blue because sometimes I'll do a blue kit, and the light blue works well for scratches on a blue surface. All right, that's looking decent. Now again, this is the first step. Once I get done with the chipping, then I'm going to add more layers to this. So this is going to be like 3 or 4 layers that go down. There's going to be streaking, rust streaks, grime. In some cases, oil streaks. Like on the top, I've got fuel stains. Let me go over this. I'm going to close this up and clean my brush real quick, and I'll go over some of the stuff that I'm going to use as we get deeper and deeper into the weathering process here. Let me just clean up my brush real quick. This is just lacquer thinner that I have in a jar. Nothing fancy. So I'm going to keep that tip nice and pointed. Okay, so let that sit for a second. So most of the stuff that I have in my for weathering stuff is either the Tamiya pastels or a lot of this AK stuff. So I've got some pigment fixer here. I've got a few jars of this, and this is for fixing pigment. It's basically setting pigment in place. So when you've got a dry pigment like this here, this is burnt rust. I'm gonna say, yeah, burnt rust. And then I've got a few more of these. This is just an example. This is AIM Products Dusty Brown. I've got a black. I've got a few shades of brown, but it's just really intense dry pigment that you apply with a brush. Now you could use the fixer. The fixer will basically cement that in place. It's almost like using scenic glue on like sand and things if you're creating a diorama with regular old-fashioned scenic glue. It's just like watered down Elmer's glue. But the fixer, this stuff is clear and it dries flat. It's enamel fluid essentially, and it dries flat. So you can clean your brush with it, but you can apply that. You put a few drops on and then put the pigment on. And then what I like to do too sometimes is go over that with, once that's dry, I'll go over it and dust it with a little bit of just dry pigment without fixing it, because it'll give that more natural dusty effect. But I've also got streaking grime. This is track wash, so this will be strictly for the tracks. And I'll put this on first, so the black tracks there'll be a lot of brown and the track wash there, and then I'll go over that with dry pigment as well, which will further make. And then got engine oil, fuel stains, and then I got just a couple of dry pigments here. This is a light rust wash. So these are all stuff that I'll use, and I just took a bunch out. I'm not sure which one I'll pick from. I may not use them all, but I've got quite a few, and I even have quite a bit more here. This is just a basket full of AK products, essentially. Dark yellow. This is like a grime. I've got some white or gray panel lining. Another darker panel line. This is camouflage panel line. Rust, crusted rust, rust streaks. Got green grime. I don't need that for this kit. And I've got dirt and dust. This is a really good one to have. This is really nice. If you don't want to use pigments, this really gives, when it dries, it gives a very, very good dusty, dirty effect. And I've got Africa dust effects here as well. You got to keep these mixed up because they do dry out on you. Light rust, neutral gray, wash. So I got quite a bit to choose from. But we'll just keep applying what, in layers, what works best. All right, let's keep chipping away here. Chipping away. All right, I'm just going to mix this up again, give it a little quick stir. Wipe this off. All right. So I think what I might do, rather than working on this piece, I'm going to put this fender up to it real quick. Oh, the side skirt. I keep saying fender, but I mean side skirt here. So I can get an idea where these overlap, and then I will start chipping this side armor. So you see here too, this is where I cut that section out. You see that this side piece pretty much covers up that most of that. So I only had to kind of shave off a little bit off the corner and then cut that entire piece out. So now it virtually blends in. And once I get the tracks on, then I can stick this on and be good with it. So the reason I wanted to put this up was so I could take a look at how much of this is exposed. So where the chipping will start and end, because then it's going to transfer to this panel. There will be some damage along the bottom here, obviously with the tank going down the road or in a dusty, dirty environment. There's going to be quite a bit of transfer to this bottom edge and some to the front. So yeah, that joins up very nicely right there. So I will finish the front fender here. Let me do that first. What's next after this? Henry is asking, what is next after this? I have a Macross commission to do. And I don't know if Giovanni, did Giovanni jump in tonight? I don't think I saw him yet. Giovanni is who wants me to do the, oh yeah, Giovanni's there. There he is. Yeah, he's in the room. He's the one that bought the compressor, that's right. Giovanni wants me to do a Macross commission for him, so that's what I'm going to be doing next after this. I'm trying to just get this in a position that I can work on it. I may just have to take it off this pad. It's just in the way. Yeah, I just got to add more to this. This front wheel. The track, I'm just going to eyeball this again here, so yeah, there's not going to be too much exposed, but I want to get as much of this chipping in here, because this is where a lot of that transfer would be. What did it say? Oh, yeah, I will talk to you on Friday. Okay. Yeah, let me know. If plans change, I understand. No big deals. I'm going to be building models one way or another. So it's a, we once done as it's a 1/72nd scale VF1D, which is the trainer. VF1D Gerwalk in 1/72nd scale from Hasegawa. It also has a resin Minmay figure in it. Good for this Friday. Okay, what time, Giovanni? If you don't mind me asking. I mean, I do work until 3:30 in the afternoon Pacific, and then it takes me about another hour to get home, providing the wife hasn't made any plans that I don't know about yet. Typically, I'm home around 5. So right now, I'm just adding chipping to the bottom of this, to the front of this fender that's exposed. This is the thing I was worried about, because I gotta put it up in the air. It's kind of hard to see it on camera, so I'm trying to make sure I got at least an angle that works for everybody. Yeah, pretty good so far. $1,800, 6 o'clock, that'll work. All right. Now that I got that outside done, I'm going to pop this back on. Okay, yeah. So that works good. Just need a little more in front here. Let me know what time is good for you. Now, 1800 sounds fine. Like I said, I sometimes I'll get a message from my wife in the middle of the afternoon, like, "Hey, you want to go over here? We got to go here. We got to do this." So, without any of that changing anything, yeah, it should be fine. 6 o'clock. 6:42. Okay. You're lucky I'm on tonight. We got a hockey game to watch. I'm just gonna have to wait till after the show. All right, give me 1 sec while I get this back in position. There we go. All right. Yeah, I need a little bit on this edge here. Not much, but it is kind of an exposed, sharp edge that's kind of protruding. And in the front of the tank, it's going to be one of the places that might take a hit, you know. All right, now I'm just going to add a little bit to the front of this side skirt area here. I want to go too heavy. Can always add a little bit. First light coat of aqua gloss is done. How did the finish look, Giovanni? Put that on. Well, I guess I don't have to. I have aqua gloss, but I've never used it. That's the thing. I've heard good things. Like if it's good for their metallics, especially. You can't use a regular lacquer gloss. Ask me how I know, because I almost screwed a kit up really bad one time because I didn't know that. I was using metallics, making these really beautiful finishes, and then I went over it with a lacquer clear, just a Mr. Color, and it just bled right out. And all I had was, the black base from underneath. It was just almost ruined it. I had to go back and hand paint a lot of pieces to make it look nice again. I'm trying to keep this on camera here. All right, I'm gonna work on this front corner. This is gonna be one of those edges that, especially this spot right here, right where it's gonna take quite a bit of damage on that leading edge. Pretty good so far. Show the shine. Well, good. I think you're doing the right thing then. Like I said, I think I stopped using all clad for the most part when I started getting a lot of the Mr. Color, like the super metallics. So I kind of went away from. I still have a good collection of their paint and I bought the aqua gloss prior to that, so I never used it, but I was always curious to know if it really does work well on their metallics. So it sounds like it does, which is good, because I know in some years, past years, they've had issues with their black base. They changed the formulation, and sometimes it wouldn't even cure properly, and that's another reason why I was kind of like done with fighting with Mr. Color. I mean, All Clad, because I wanted to be able to spray it on knowing that it would work and have to be such a delicate finish. They produce amazing metallic finishes though, but it was like, what's the trade-off? I can't even touch the damn thing and it'll just wipe off or damage. Spray the wrong thing on it, damages the finish. So as long as you use the right product, it should be fine. You've had bad luck masking metallic parts after aqua gloss. Really? Let me put that on screen. So you've had bad luck masking metallic parts after aqua gloss. The aqua gloss trying to mask the parts become dull. I think that's true for any part, any metallic finish, regardless of what's over it. Like I've used clear coats over Mr. Color lacquer. They're the super metallics, and I've noticed that too. Like if you get you try to mask something over and it does take that initial bright finish right off, and so that's not uncommon. I think the hardest thing is getting around that is how do you prevent that? Do you have to do masking, whatever masking you're going to do before you do your metallics, and do the metallics last? I mean, that might be the only way to ultimately prevent that. So it looks pretty dark right now, but it's going to be fine, because once I start going over this stuff with pastels and stuff, it's going to lighten up these dark chips that you're seeing. But I'm kind of looking at where these drive gears are and where the tracks are going to go around. So there's going to be quite a bit along this bottom edge. Let me take this off real quick. Started thinning the all-clad black base with Mr. Color Living Thinner. Really? So that does work, huh? Interesting. Put that on the screen. So sounds like you can use Mr. MLT, Mr. Color Leveling Thinner, with all-clad black base. Nice. Yeah, because it seems like too, that's the most important part of a nice metallic finish is the base. That black base has to be perfect without any, it's got to be shiny and smooth. If you get any lint or imperfections in it, you're going to see that come right through in the metallic finish. Share my referral link. Hang on a second. What's going on the screen here? I guess I can do that. There we go. Now streaming. Now you guys can see that. You ever thought about doing your own live streams? About ready to have to clean this brush out again. Another thing to think about when you're doing this chipping is your scale. As you get larger scale, like I mean, smaller scale, like 1/100 Gundam or something. This is 1/35th, so you can get pretty liberal with the size of these chips. But when you start getting up to 1/100 or 1/44 scale, you got to be realistic about what you're going to see. You can't go too overboard. So it's something to think about when you're doing this kind of chipping. You know, you can put that on the screen for a second or two until somebody else jumps in. And I'll take it down. So I'm just trying to throw up a little scratch, you know, a little bit of a scratch. Going to be quite a bit on this hook here too. This is going to be used for various things, and paint will definitely be chipped off of that. And I've also got these steps here, so there will be some chipping around the hinge. Obviously, anything that's painted, when you're moving it around, you're going to have paint chipping off around moving parts. Military vehicles and in general, you know, they're, especially tanks, there's a lot of stuff rubbing together. There's going to be chips and things on the edges. You can put these steps in the down position if you want. I obviously didn't want to. I just didn't find the need to have them down. I was going to have crew or anything standing on them, so I put them in the folded up position. All right, moving right along. I'm going to take this piece off now since I've already kind of get the idea. It'll be a little bit easier to. I'm just going to set this down and work just on this. So I've got the leading edge. There'll be some on here. I'm going to do a little bit on top. But this most of this will be covered up. When this goes on, all this entire flat edge here is going to be covered up to this point. So there might be a little bit down here in the back end, but most of this will be not even going to be seen. I might put a little bit of chipping on it, but just so it's there. But I might get covered up in the end. Just going to kind of dress up a little bit of these couple little leading edges. Where things might rub or rock chip. So anybody else got anything exciting going on? Let's see. G1 said he's working on his Ultraman. What else we got? Let's see. Giovanni's doing his clear coats and aqua gloss and all cloud metallics. What's Handren working on? Well, you're on the road, so I doubt you're working on anything, huh? Unless you brought a kid along with you. And Julius, what are you working on? If you're still here. What about Nick? Nick needs to chime in too. Maybe even Michael. Let us know what you guys are working on. Working on an SDGM sniper. Nice. SD, huh? I didn't know they made a GM sniper with it. Describing new panel lines. Very cool. And that's something you can do while your truck is parked, right? Well, this is also a step here, this open area. So there's going to be quite a bit of chipping along this top edge as well, where crew and things, stepping in. Julius is still working on the customizing the MG RGM79. Nice. Scratch built your own. Oh, he's scratch building an SD. Man, that's cool. That's got to be a lot of work. I'd love to see some of that. And sorting 50 plus testers by color, new racks. Nice to hear, Nick. So you still you're still okay with tester enamels? I just found them harder to find. It was getting harder and harder to find. So, and then I found that I could get them from Sunward Hobbies up in Canada, even though it takes a little longer now because the tariffs and probably costs a little more for shipping. But I got all mine that I got, at least the current stock I have, before all that went down. So, but yeah, I used to love testers. I only used a few colors, but doing the same thing, just reverse washes or the nice thing is when you put them on lacquers over the top, they will bond, but when they're initially put on the model, if you do make a mistake, you can take them right back off again. Some enamel thinner. It's a nice go-to because of their versatility that way. But I do like the Tamiya brand as far as their paint too. The enamels, they work really, really well. Oh, I'll send you some pics. Nice. He says using old Blue Destiny as the base. Nice. Very cool. Giovanni says I'll send you some pics. Cool. Can't wait to see it. Your next kit is an SD Amazinger. Oh, really? Nice. And Nick says, have them everywhere by me. Yeah, weathering and highlights. That's true. And that's all I ever used them for too. I never, I didn't use them for any kind of painting. But the nice thing is now that I have the Tamiya stuff, and I've got a good stock of not leveling thinner, but enamel thinner, I could try, do an occasional airbrush with something just to see. Anyway, we're continuing the highlights here on this side armor. A little bit. This is a raised section, or like a line in the armor where it's kind of a leading edge, so there's going to be some chipping there, and I'd like to at least put a little bit there to indicate what something got hit. And again, I'm going to keep going down this bottom edge because that's right where the tracks are going to roll by. Oh, and then Henry says, I usually post whip pics every now and then on the socials. Okay, so cool. Check out Asaki Art and see the latest of his scratch built custom SD. Sounds like it. Sounds cool. you know, recently, and I've kind of stopped doing more custom work. The last big custom job I did was with my I had a Jesta that I wanted to make into a urban assault type. So I basically modified every single bit of armor on it. It wasn't a single panel that didn't get touched in some way. But that took a long time to do that, and it's been a while since I've sat down and done a really big custom job like that. I think I got used to trying to just start a kit, build it, do some nice paint work, maybe a little bit of customization, but not that deep. Not spending months and months and months on a single project anymore. Maybe I got to get back into that. I don't know. All right, so I'll give you a close up here so you see what we're doing. Just highlighting some of the areas that are going to get scratch and chip, and I can go heavier as need be. Customize the shit out of it. I'm going to paint the SD Amazing Air in red metallic. That'll look great, Giovanni. Now, one thing I did with one of my first airbrush, when I first got an airbrush, I immediately, of course, I jump in and want to do something ridiculous like a candy-coated Sazabi 1.0 with a resin conversion kit, a dress-up kit, really. And I did something with All Clad that is not technically supposed to work, and I used their clear red enamel over their metallic base, and it's not supposed to really stick, but it did. And I don't recommend it. I mean, they make candy bases, but I was using their chrome, so I was using their the lacquer chrome silver, and then going over that with candy red enamel, and just layering it until it got the dark, really rich red color. It did work, but then years later, I had it on display in a store in California, and the guy said that his windows were tinted with this UV tint. But I went over there because they had an earthquake and it fell and got damaged, and I ended up fixing it. When I went to go pick it up, the second time it fell, I was like, that's it. I'm just going to take it out of the store. You know, this thing's getting just beat up. So I went to pick it up, and it had faded. The entire paint job was almost pink because all that cherry red color was gone from sitting in the sun. It was kind of disappointing, to say the least. He ended up giving me a couple of kits from the store just to make up for it. So he says, man, speaking of the Sazabi, a few weeks ago I swung by Hobby Lobby and saw the Sazabi Verka in stock. Really? And did they honor their 40% off on it? I mean, that would have been ridiculous if you could get it there with their daily coupon, unless they stopped doing that. Yeah, that would have been a catch for sure. I know they stopped doing it on airbrushes because people were just raping the store for discounts when it came to using that 40% off coupon. They were getting abused quite a bit by all right. This is good. And when we get down to here, there's going to be a little bit more here too, because again, this is a sharper leading edge. And so with the tracks the way they are, there might be a little bit of stuff turned up into that area. I also started going along these hinges. Each one of these side armor panels has hinges on it where they open for maintenance purposes. So there's going to be, again, moving parts rubbing together, there's going to be chipping. Like on these hinges for the steps. Again, the second step where these hinges meet up. That box was so glorious. I took a look at it. I practiced some heavy restraints, just not buying it. Yeah, it's a massive, massive kit. It is probably the most partsiest kit that I've ever built from Bandai. And there were so many runners, and I did it in a custom, my Sinister paint scheme, which was blacks, grays, and then some blue hexagonal pattern on it. I used to use stencils with. I still have the stencils, but yeah. It's about time. Maybe I should bust out the Sinister scheme again. Do another Sinister paint scheme on a kit. That's what I called it. It was my own custom paint scheme. It was basically a blue hexagonal pattern is like the chest and some of the accent pieces, but then the limbs and stuff were done in dark grays or blacks. More of a Sinister paint scheme kind of thing. Not the bright red, traditional Sazabi or traditional Xeon kit like that. Just going further up on the second step here. I'd even go a little bit deeper in where, like I said, crew, things people step in. There's going to be some chipping in there. Now let's see what this looks like. So I put this back up. Okay. So yeah, I kind of like the way this looks so far. I'm going to have to do a little bit in some of these areas where these panels, these hinges are, maybe a little bit more across this top edge here. Not much, but there's a little bit where that sticks out. It kind of overlaps, overhangs. So that would be, and then of course across the top edges, there will be a little bit there too. But as we get further up, again, we're not going to go too deep, too heavily on top. It's going to start to diminish as you get higher up, just like any kind of Gundam kit too, like any kind of mech. The feet and legs are going to be the most dirty, the most damaged, the most, because they're closer to the ground and they're the ones getting rocks and things kicked up, dirt, dust, collection. I'm just trying to say, like, all the things you can keep in mind while you're doing weathering. Think about the process. Think about what would look, realistic. And I made a mistake of one of my very first. I did chipping on the Freedom Gundam. It wasn't 2.0, it was just the regular Freedom Gundam, and I started doing chipping on all I had each individual, like a leg, had all the legs separated, the body, things like that. And I did chipping on each individual piece one at a time. And it looked great individually. But then when I put the whole kit together, and I showed it to a friend of mine who's way more experienced than I was, said to me, he goes, yeah, it looks great if he was doing jumping jacks in an asteroid field. So I really learned a valuable lesson. It's like less is more, but also sometimes it's necessary to put pieces together and weather them as a unit rather than doing each piece separately. That's why you'll see me occasionally take this side piece and just put it in place and go, okay, where do these panels intersect? Am I going to continue? How much chipping would there be? And I'm going to add rust and streaking and other things. There's going to be a lot more to this. This is just the first step. And then I'll even get some of my deeper scratches. I'll go, like I said earlier, with some of that silver and just barely touch a few of those areas that might have gone down to bare metal. And then, of course, once I use the pastels and the rust and the dirt effects on those, it'll tone down that bright silver and make it look just like it's bare metal, but it's still not shiny, you know what I mean? So let's see. Hasaki's got another here. Let's see what it says. It says, I think a lot of modelers tend to overweather Gundam models. They don't understand that these things are giants and you can't treat them like an armor. Yeah, and again, that goes back to scale too. I think you got a good point, because it brings us back to scale. Because as you go to 1/100, 144, you're getting so small, where a 6-foot human is only half-inch tall. And so when you put a tiny little chip on a kit that size, in reality, that chip would be the size of a basketball. So you've got to be careful on the amount and the size and the intensity of your weathering. So it just comes down to practice, and nobody's perfect. I am not by any means, but it's about evolving and trying to hone your skills a little bit. Now there's a little buckle here. I'm going to put a little bit of chipping around that, because again, go back to moving parts, metal on metal, painted things that are painted are going to rub together, especially buckles and hinges that are used for who knows what. You got a little buckle hanging off the side of something. It might be used to strap a piece of equipment down or something like that. So it's going to get wear and tear. It's going to get damage. So you just want to make sure you're not overdoing it. It's a lot easier to add more. You go, okay, I could just touch this area a little bit or something like that. It's a lot easier to do that than it is to try to take it off. Do too much. But yeah, that Freedom Gundam look, it was horrible. And then I did pastels and rust streaks on that too. So not only did it have chipping galore, it was everywhere. And that was only because I had, like I said, I disassembled the kit and I started chipping each section individually, not seeing it together as a whole. And my lack of experience definitely played a part as how bad it looks at the end. Especially small scale. Yeah, it's tough. It gets a lot harder. The smaller scale, it gets tougher and tougher to. You just got to don't get too carried away, because you go, oh, I could put a little dot here. I could add a little bit here. And I'll just put another little bit right here. And eventually you end up with so much on there that you're like, oh, it just looks, it's too much. I don't prefer 144 scale, especially Gundam kits. I like the master grade size. I like the technology that goes into a master grade. I like the gimmicks and the details and things like that. And just, I think the build, the technology going into the build is what kind of draws me to it more too than just an HG style kit. Unless of course you're going with these hard graft kits like these. This is where it really gets cool, because the hard graft stuff, for some reason, to me, seems to be way more detailed than just a standard 144 scale kit. I think the hard graft stuff is amazing. All right. So now we're getting into the back half of this. The side skirt is actually, this is uncovered. So this front portion is covered up by the fender. So back here, we're going to have some exposed areas where these hinges are. So there's going to be chipping on these hinge points all the way to the back. And then part of this, I think, overlaps the side of the exhaust bits, but I'll worry about that later once I get down there. Same goes for shadowing the paint. Yeah. Oh, you don't like pre-shading, or you think too much of it? I mean, there can be too much of anything, really. I get your point, Andrew. I like pre-shading. I think it works well in some cases, but yeah, I guess with a smaller scale, you've got to think about that scale before you add just this too much, too much dark shadowing between panels. This kind of takes away from the scale, I think. Put that on the screen for everybody. I should have done that earlier. But yeah, exactly. We got about 15 more minutes here. I'm just going to keep plugging away on this side area. Be a little bit here. Something to think about too is that this line that I'm doing right now is kind of along where the top of the fender comes down. But again, all these parts are removable in some way because they're going, in real life, you're going to have serviceability and serviceable parts. So in fact, the fenders on, let me pull this forward. These fenders don't even have to be included on the kit. You can actually build it without these top pieces on, and there's tools and stuff that goes underneath it. For me, I got a piece on there. Oh, I'll get it off later. I like to put as much as I can on the kit that comes with it. I don't know why anybody would build it any other way, but to me, I think these fenders look really cool, so that's why I'm putting them on there. But there's a lot of hinges. You can see them molded into the actual kit. So that tells me that these panels, like this is a door, this is a storage area. This is going to fold down. So all these little edges, those panel lines are going to have some kind of, there's going to be a little bit of chipping and a little bit of weathering on there. So when I put this together and along this top edge, yeah, that fender comes right to the edge of that. But again, that's going to be a serviced part. There's going to be a hinge there. Something's going to fold up. Something's got to be closed. So there's going to be a little bit of damage between those panels, scratches, not heavy, just small stuff. So as you get further and further in, it's good to sit there and think about it. You don't have to rush. Put it up here, place your piece together, and go, okay, does that look okay? And again, I've got another little bit. When I place this up there again, let me get it up here. Try not to scratch the actual paint. Okay, so we go like this, and you see where this right here, where this panel comes together, this line, those fenders are going to be removable. So there might be little dings and scratches along this top edge. So I'm going to add a little bit to those areas. Not like that. Not like dropping it. Well, let's see here. Yeah, appreciating, especially on the smaller kits, not feasible in my opinion. Yeah, it's tough to do. You got to be very subtle with it. And I do appreciate stuff, but I tend to be more on the subtle side of appreciating. I like those areas. I mean, this is here, for example. Let me clean my brush here. So we're winding this down. I'm just going to talk about it because I did pre-shade this kit technically. I did a black primer, which essentially worked as a pre-shade because as I painted it, I wanted some of those areas where the panels are to be slightly darker. And I'm talking about slightly, not much. So I'm going to use the one I haven't started here as an example. So you see between these panel lines here with those, there is pre-shade there. It's not much. It's just subtle. A little bit here, a little bit across this edge. Down on the bottom, you can see each one of these lines not very heavy. I mean, they could easily make that super dark and have, you know, hardly any, bring that color hardly up to the line, and then you've got this really dark area. But I see a lot of people do that. It's just not my thing. I'm not going to say there's anything wrong with it because everybody's styles are different. But for me, I just don't do it that way. And so as we painted this, you know, particularly because when I added the panel lines, the accent color did exactly what I thought it would. It kind of collected in those textured areas and made those even darker. So it really kind of highlights those panels and gives it some character. Now, once I add dust and dirt to these areas, and accumulation points and collection areas and all that grime, it really should make this whole thing come together. Should. I say should because anything can happen. 135. Let's see. Yeah, appreciating it. We already talked about that. Here's another one here. 135 and 160 makes a bit more sense. Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to find a lot of Gundam kits, though, in those really, really big scales, especially we're never going to find anything in 135th unless it's a bust or a head kit or something like that. But by the time you get that big, most people are just doing clean builds anyway. Giovanni says weather kits are nice, but right now, in my case, I'm just focused on clean builds. Hey, that's totally fine, too. I know lots of builders that do nothing but clean builds. And it's about practicing. You know, you got to start somewhere. I didn't start weathering kits right away. You know, it can be scary, and I'm not saying that's in your case, Giovanni. I'm just saying for me, you know, it can be daunting when you're going, well, I really want to make this dusty dirty, and that's what happened. I jumped in, I did that Freedom kit, the Freedom kit, and then it turned out horrible, you know, but it was necessary for me to learn from that experience, you know, and get better at it. So there's nothing wrong with clean builds at all. Absolutely not. Look at RB, you know, Ryan Bartoletti, RB Gunpla Works. Nothing but clean kits, but they're just beautiful, you know. You can't beat that. Or even Chris Pabs. I'm not sure I've seen any kits that I might have seen one or two, but I don't think he does any weathering as well. So, but his stuff is just immaculate, you know. So get good at one thing, and then you can push your limits a little bit and try something new. You don't have to try to learn everything all at once, for sure. Handren says, I think that can be achieved. Dark wash and panel lines. True. Yeah, you don't have to pre-shade. That is true. And so that's where I think I've come, you know, along in that respect, is that my pre-shading is a little more subtle. So a lot of those accents and stuff are then added later. But I do like the pre-shade effect in some cases. I use it on my Macross kits as well. So it does have its benefits, but it's not necessary. You can achieve, like you're saying, you can achieve those effects in other ways. If I start weathering, might be an SD kit, something small. Sure, absolutely, that's a great idea, Giovanni. You know, do something small. It doesn't have to be this giant, massive kit. Just start small. Start small and experiment, or get yourself like what they call it, a paint mule. You know, something that you don't mind experimenting on, an old kit, you know, something that's junk or set on your uncompleted shelf or something like that, and just start experimenting. That's what I did with when I first got an airbrush. Is I just took an old kit I had already painted, and you know, it was all hand painted garbage. But actually, no, it wasn't. It was just an old kit. It was a very old. It was Gundam, but it was just something I didn't mind if it got, you know, if it came out horrible, because it was just a really cheap kit, but it had some unique characteristics to it that were fun to challenge myself with, and then when you get more comfortable, you move on and do something else. Anyway, we're getting down to the end of the nitty-gritty here, boys. So I guess we're going to wrap things up here. Let's go back to just the download here. So you can really see those those individual panels pretty clearly, even at this range. But they did get darker just by collecting a little bit of that panel line color. These I am not glued down yet. The exhaust pieces I have not, because I want to be able to take them off and do some soot and streaking effects on the back fenders here, where the exhaust is going to be. I also want to dress up those exhaust nozzles as well with some maybe bluing. I might do a little bit of bluing on them. Man, that thing gonna look sweet. Thanks, bud. I appreciate that. Truly, truly appreciate it. But like I said, I didn't glue these down yet because I want to be able to take them off and do some work underneath, so I don't have to try to get pastels or applicator in an area that's too tight where I can't get it. Then it just won't look right. So if I can do that streaking effect before on those fenders, then I can glue those back down later, and it will look more natural than just something that was applied later. What else? I think that's it. The turret. Turret's pretty much in one piece, with the exception of the two guns that have to go on it. You can see a little bit of that appreciating here on the barrels. I'm going to do some weathering where, there'll be some grime and stuff, because, the barrels are round, so anything that runs off them is going to kind of collect along that bottom edge. And then I also got to think about, I have some leftover stowage stuff for my 135th Abrams, so I'm going to see if any of that will work, and maybe in the baskets here. So that's it. I'm also going to add some soot to these vents here. I think that's an exhaust vent, so there'll be some grime and stuff like that as well. So in the meantime, let me just kind of pop this back on temporarily so I can close the computer down eventually. All right. I'm going to do a diorama. Yeah, I probably will. I think we talked about it. I can't remember every single idea that came up, but it will probably be some kind of a simple base. I don't know if I'm going to use the Rambarel set for the Zaku head. I don't know if I want to do something that large, as far as a base. If I do any kind of base, it'll be fairly close to the size of the tank. When I did the Abrams is a little bit smaller. It's the same scale, but it's just a little bit smaller physically. And I managed to put that on a base that was a wood plank, about a 9x12, I think. So I might try to do something like that. I don't know. If I go any bit bigger, then, to put the Zaku head on, that's just more thinking, more planning, but still haven't decided. Yeah, Zaku head. I know everybody wants the Zaku head. That is a very good idea. So I think it might be cool to have the tank sitting there in front of it, and a bunch of guys celebrating their win or something like that, with this Zaku head laying there. But we'll see. What does this say? Having the feds taking a selfie. Exactly. Sounds like a great idea. We'll park in the tank beside it. Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, I can. Once I get closer to the finishing of the tank, then I'll start maybe pulling that stuff out of the box and see. But I got to talk to Giovanni too, because I know he's waiting patiently for his commission. And I don't do deadlines with commissions, and that was made clear at the beginning here. So I do want to finish the project and get on his, but at the same time, I don't want to be rushing through this to. Oh gosh, my computer is trying to update. No, I don't want you to update. Let's do this. Uh-oh, you guys still see me? I hope you can. I guess I shouldn't have done that. Let's see. Pick a time. Today at, let's do, it's almost 7. Let's do 7:15. 45. That will get us. Hopefully I didn't lose you guys. There. I can minimize that. Okay. I don't think I lost you, but I had to switch screens on me because my computer decided, oh, I'm going to update right in the middle of your live stream. No, you're not. All right. What does this one say? Then voila, you have a GBWC entry. Tanks never win GBWC, guys. As good as they look, we all know GBWC looks for flashy, shiny Gundam kits. They're never gonna take a tank to Japan. Dendrobium made it over there once, but I don't think I've ever seen a main battle tank on there. Yes, Julia says yes. All right, boys and girls, it's time to wrap this up. So let me go back up here to my mug. Hey guys, thanks for coming in. I appreciate you coming back. I know I missed you last week, but again, I was out for training. And man, what am I doing with these bags under my eyes? I look like an old man. Anyway, right, G1? I look like an old man. So, Ryan won with a single Gundam. Yeah, I get that, but it wasn't a tank. It's not a tank. Tanks don't win. We all know that. I mean, not to say I wouldn't try. I mean, that would be cool. But as far as winning like the U.S. qualifier to go to Japan with a tank, I doubt it. I doubt it would seriously win. That's just not what they pick. I had a nice city diorama with 3 real grades on it and a bunch of buildings and blown up buildings with lighting and flickering LEDs inside, and I got a 3rd place in the U.S. qualifier that year. So it just doesn't always. It's not. You got to do something that's going to look good on a magazine cover and sell more model kits. That's what it's all about. So anyway, yes. Good night, everybody. Let me go down the list here. Thanking everybody that popped in. Handren was the very first one. Giovanni right after that. Michael Francis Garcia in shortly after that. And then we had Nick jump in. And Julius and Zaza. Thank you so much for joining in. I hope you're still here. I don't think G1 came in right after that, and I think that was pretty much it. Yeah, going down. Nobody else knew. So anyway, if I missed anybody, I apologize. Best viewers. Oh, here we go. Now I'm getting the spam from Twitch. Why do I always get spam from Twitch right at the end of my live streams? I don't understand that. Best viewers on streamboo.com, blah, 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 whatever. I'm not interested. So I'm doing just fine right where I'm at, guys. Anyway, we'll talk to you soon. See you guys next week. I'm going to continue doing the weathering, and we'll see where we're at. Hopefully, it's going to take a while to get through this kit with all the chipping that's got to be done first. So it might just be another round of that. Hopefully, we'll get to some pastels, maybe some streaking effects and things like that. So we'll see. Anyway, see you guys next time. Thanks for joining.